Welcome to Learn English Podcast.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here is to take the source material you provide, and it could be anything, a research paper, a legal brief, or like we have today, a really effective learning transcript. And we turn it into actionable, synthesized knowledge.
Right. We're not just, reading the assignment for you.
No, not at all. We are dissecting the engine that makes the assignment run so well.
And the source we have today is, it's a fascinating specimen. We are doing a linguistic and structural deep dive into this transcript of an interactive English learning lesson.
A very specific one.
Yes, and it's entirely focused on improving listening and speaking skills. And it uses this simple, relatable dialogue as its foundation.
That's absolutely right. So for you, the learner who's with us today, our goal isn't just to, review the English phrases Mark and Sarah used in the dialogue.
No, that's just the surface level.
Exactly. We need to understand the architecture of effective knowledge delivery that's embedded in this material. How is this lesson engineered to shortcut your journey? To deliver that knowledge quickly, thoroughly, and make sure those aha moments are actually built into the structure itself.
Well, the source material is very upfront about its ambition, which I think is important. It sets the expectation. It explicitly states its goals are, learning English vocabulary faster, getting better listening comprehension, improving pronunciation.
And boosting speaking skills.
And boosting speaking skills quickly through what it calls a fun and interactive learning experience.
Okay, so let's unpack this methodology. The core question, really, the one that's driving this whole exercise and our analysis today, is the one that poses directly to you, the listener.
Are you ready to train your brain to speak English fluently?
That's the one. And if we accept that premise, then we really have to dissect the three main phases of that training that are described in the source.
Right. So first, you have the conversational dialogue that sets the whole scene.
Then second, you have what we're calling the linguistic nuggets, these little bits that are extracted for focused study.
And finally, and this is maybe the most important part, the rigorous methodology of repetition and recall.
I think if we can master the structural mechanics of this specific instructional design, we can apply that understanding to learning pretty much any complex topic.
Oh, absolutely. From coding to advanced history with maximum efficiency.
It becomes a meta-analysis, really.
Yeah.
It's about the learning process itself. It shows us how to be better learners.
So let's start where the source starts, with the foundation. The conversational scenario.
So the scenario is, it's beautifully simple, it's relatable, and it's so universally grounded in human experience.
The chance meeting.
The chance meeting, exactly. And the source initiates the dialogue between these two characters, Mark and Sarah, and it sets this immediate, casual, and highly replicable social tone.
Yeah, it models those conversational openings for the learner right off the bat. The initiation itself is kind of a masterclass in efficiency.
How so?
Well, Sarah starts the exchange just by asking Mark, how's it going? Now, this is a standard, culturally mandated opener in English.
It's not really a request for deep information, is it?
Not at all. It's a social lubricant. The lesson uses it to immediately model how you open a casual chat in a very low-stakes environment.
And Mark's response, not bad, is equally standard. That pairing alone, how's it going, not bad, teaches the learner the common way to exchange pleasantries.
But this is the critical part. This is where Mark immediately pivots and sets up the main topic of the day.
Right. He uses the phrase, I actually ran into an old friend yesterday.
And that little word actually is doing so much structural work there.
I was just thinking that. It's not just filler.
No, it signals a shift from the mandatory, how are you stuff, to the actual substance of the conversation. It introduces the core theme, unexpected meetings, and at the same time, the primary vocabulary target.
Ran into.
Exactly, ran into.
What's so great is how quickly the source moves from that simple greeting to a detailed narrative. Because that story, that becomes the raw material for the comprehension tests that come later.
Right. Mark's story about his friend Tom is the central plot device. We learn these specific facts that the lesson then uses to check if you've retained the knowledge.
And we gather those specifics, and then we see them confirmed in the Q&A section, which is the learner's retention check.
So we learn the friend's name is Tom, and the history they share isn't abstract. It's anchored in a very specific shared activity.
They used to play soccer together.
Back in high school. And those details are so critical.
Why do you think that is? Why not just say an old friend?
Because for a learner, abstract ideas are just so much harder to retain than concrete, visual, specific details. By linking this reunion to Tom and the specific action of playing soccer in high school, the lesson makes that vocabulary phrase, ran into, it makes it far stickier in your memory.
That makes a lot of sense. And the result of the encounter is also carefully detailed. Mark says they chatted for a bit.
And that phrase, for a bit, that's its own linguistic nuance, isn't it? It implies a brief but, significant exchange.
For sure. And the emotional takeaway is explicitly positive. He says, it was nice catching up after so many years.
So the source makes sure that the learner associates this type of encounter with a positive emotion. It establishes what you could call a positive emotional valence.
Then Sarah immediately steps into her role. And her role isn't just to listen.
No, she's the conversational validator.
Right. She uses one of our target phrases to affirm and agree with Mark's positive experience. She says, I bet it's always nice to reconnect with old friends.
And this is a crucial element. This goes beyond just exchanging information. It models how expert speakers validate, they affirm, they connect on an emotional level.
It's showing you how to participate in a supportive, empathetic exchange, which is, that's just as important as knowing the right vocabulary.
Definitely.
The transition that follows then models the next stage of a natural conversation. You reciprocate the story.
Right. Mark cues Sarah to share a similar experience. He's demonstrating how to maintain that conversational flow and balance. He asks her directly,
Have you ever run into someone from your past unexpectedly?
And Sarah accepts the cue, and she provides this parallel narrative which just cements the whole theme of unexpected encounters. And just like Mark's story, the specifics of her narrative are really important for the comprehension checks later on.
Right. She ran into her elementary school teacher.
Not just any teacher, her elementary school teacher.
And again, the specificity of the location is beautiful. It wasn't just in town or out somewhere. She met the teacher precisely at the grocery store. That location is the anchor detail for her half of the story.
And that level of precision is, structurally, it's absolutely key for maximizing your retention. But what's even more sophisticated is how the lesson architect uses the Q&A section later to provide negative confirmation.
Which you don't see modeled that cleanly very often in these kinds of materials.
Rarely.
So tell us more about that. What do you mean by negative confirmation?
Well, the source later asks the question, did Sarah run into her teacher at the hospital? And the explicit answer it provides is, no, she didn't, confirming she only met her own grocery store.
I see.
So by offering a plausible but incorrect alternative, a hospital's a common place for chance adult encounters, or maybe a school, and then immediately correcting it, the lesson eliminates any ambiguity. It reinforces the single correct context.
So it deepens your commitment to the precise details of the source material. You can't just generalize.
You can't. It's a critical mechanism. It prevents you from making these broad, generic associations and forces you to recall the specific, sticky detail, the grocery store.
And just like Mark's story, the emotional takeaway for Sarah mirrors that positive experience. She described the meeting as a pleasant surprise.
So if you look at the larger pattern here, the entire narrative arc, it functions as this powerful double redundancy example of the central topic, unexpected reunions.
The dialogue then concludes by drawing out that shared human element of these chance encounters.
Yeah, Mark initiates the closing reflection. He notes that sense of shame history when he hears Sarah's story, and he says, that must have been nostalgic.
And then he provides the final generalized statement that just neatly brings the emotional arc of the dialogue to a close. And he uses a variation of the key vocabulary.
It's emotional how we can bump into people from our past when we least expect it.
And Sarah's final agreement, it really is, just wraps the dialogue up perfectly.
So the whole interaction has successfully introduced the theme. It's provided two concrete, detailed, and positively framed examples. You have Tom, soccer, and the mall, and the teacher at the grocery store, and it's concluded with a shared philosophical reflection.
It's perfectly structured to introduce the focused vocabulary that comes right after. The conversation is the stage.
And the vocabulary is the star.
Okay, so here is where the lesson pivots. It transitions from that contextual observation to focused linguistic acquisition. The source transcript immediately pulls out the critical vocabulary phrases from the conversation.
And it defines them precisely, and then reinforces them with fresh examples.
We are looking at three specific linguistic nuggets that represent, high-frequency idiomatic English.
The inherent efficiency of this approach is just its clarity. First, you hear the phrase naturally in context, in the dialogue.
Right.
Then you receive the formal, concise definition, and finally you see it reinforced with a second, slightly varied usage example. This layering is what maximizes retention and your contextual understanding.
So let's start with nugget number 1. Run into. This is the foundational phrasal verb of the entire dialogue. It's a cornerstone of casual conversation.
The definition provided is precise and it's crucial: to unexpectedly meet someone or something. We should probably spend a moment on the term phrasal verb itself, because this is often a huge hurdle for language learners.
Absolutely. So phrasal verbs, for those who might not be familiar, are verbs combined with a preposition or an adverb like run combined with into, which completely changes the meaning of the original verb. So why are they so difficult for learners, and why is this lesson so right to focus on them?
Well, they're difficult because their meaning is often opaque or, non-literal. You can't usually deduce the meaning of run into just by knowing the meaning of run.
True.
But they are absolutely necessary for fluency because native English speakers rely so heavily on them in everyday speech. A learner who only knows the formal equivalent, like encounter, is going to sound robotic or way too formal.
So mastering phrasal verbs like run into is the key to sounding natural.
It is, and the emphasis in the definition on the word unexpectedly is critical. It separates this phrase from simply meeting someone by arrangement, like meeting a business colleague. The surprise element is mandatory.
And we see this definition perfectly illustrated in Mark's narrative, which is immediately used as the source example. Yesterday, I ran into my old friend at the mall.
Right, and even though the dialogue itself didn't specify the mall location, the definition uses that example to confirm the consistent pattern of usage. Action, person, location, all unplanned.
And Sarah's narrative reinforces it again. Last month, I ran into my elementary school teacher at the grocery store. These real-world, highly specific examples, they just anchor that abstract phrasal verb definition deep into your memory.
And as we noted earlier, the learning architecture itself later emphasizes that element of surprise again during the Q&A.
It asks, did Sarah expect to meet her teacher at the grocery store?
And the answer, no, she didn't expect it.
Yeah.
This 4-part loop context, definition, reinforcement, comprehension check is so rigorous, it ensures that you not only recall the words, but you internalize that essential semantic component of surprise.
Okay, moving on to nugget 2, I bet. This phrase is fascinating because its literal meaning involves, betting, monetary wagering, but its functional usage here is purely idiomatic and conversational.
Yeah, and that difference often trips up learners.
For sure.
The source handles this complexity brilliantly. It provides the purely contextual definition, used to express agreement or confidence in a statement or assumption.
So it immediately clarifies its function as a tool for validation and expressing high confidence. It removes any confusion with, literal gambling.
Right. This is what we call conversational grease. It shows you're engaged and you believe what the other person is saying. And the source wisely provides a clarifying example that is completely separate from the reunion narrative, which illustrates its flexibility.
The one about the weather.
Exactly. It's going to rain today? I bet it looks cloudy outside.
This shows the phrase used to express high confidence in a simple observation.
Which is important because it demonstrates the phrase's versatility. It doesn't only work when you're discussing unexpected encounters.
No, it's a general purpose phrase. However, the crucial application comes back in the dialogue, where Sarah uses it to validate Mark's positive experience.
And I bet it's always nice to reconnect with old friends. And by using I bet, Sarah is communicating 2 things. First, that she agrees with the sentiment, and second, that she feels a high degree of confidence that Mark's statement is universally true.
It's a very sophisticated way of showing empathy and agreement at the same time. A beginner might just say, I agree.
Right, but the fluent speaker uses the idiomatic, empathetic, I bet.
And that's a critical distinction. It allows you to move beyond simple, declarative yes or I agree responses and adopt a more natural, idiomatic way of supporting another speaker's statement.
It's a huge marker of moving toward true fluency and natural conversational rhythm.
Okay, and finally, nugget number 3, bump into. This phrase appears at the very end of the dialogue, almost as a synthesis word that Mark uses in his final reflection.
The definition provided is really telling. To meet or encounter someone or something unexpectedly or by chance. And if you immediately compare this to the definition of run into, you realize they are near synonyms.
Right. They're almost identical.
So the source is, therefore, teaching you two highly interchangeable phrasal verbs for the exact same concept.
So why teach both if they mean essentially the same thing?
To expand your expressive range and to combat vocabulary repetition. Fluency isn't just about correctness, it's about variety and flexibility.
That's a great point. If you use run into 3 times in one conversation, it starts to sound a little unnatural.
Exactly. But if you switch to a suitable synonym, like bump into, you sound more dynamic. This lesson builds that stylistic variation right into the material.
And the specific example given in the source, again, illustrates that element of chance. I didn't expect to bump into my neighbor while walking my dog this morning.
Again, it confirms that this phrase is also rooted in a total lack of expectation.
And its contextual application, as we saw, is where Mark uses it in his generalized reflective summary. It's emotional how we can bump into people from our past when we least expect it.
By using this parallel phrase, the lesson reinforces the central concept while, at the same time, diversifying the vocabulary that's available to you, the learner.
So we've seen the what and the why of the language.
Yes.
Now we need to address the how. We've mapped the terrain of the conversation, and we've identified the linguistic landmarks. But what really interests me, and what's most actionable for you, the learner, is the engineering under the hood. So let's shift our focus to the learning machinery itself, the pedagogical architecture.
Right. This segment, it scrutinizes the precise pedagogical methodology described in the source. And this is critical for anyone who values efficiency and depth in learning. The methodology is broken down into these distinct, sequenced phases that are designed for rapid, measurable skill transfer.
The first phase is called shadowing, and it focuses purely on the mechanics of vocal delivery. It's fascinating how specific the instructions are. It moves you immediately from passive listening to active physical practice.
The instruction is completely unambiguous. Read your lines out loud after the speakers as they talk in the conversation. Notice it's not read the lines silently or listen and try to remember.
No, it demands immediate active vocal replication. This is the heart of the shadowing technique.
It is.
So let's define shadowing fully, because it's so central to this lesson's effectiveness. It's often confused with just simple delayed imitation. What's the fundamental mechanism the source is engaging here?
Well, shadowing, at its core, it's an exercise in articulatory phonetics, or, muscle memory for the mouth. The goal is to imitate the sounds immediately after you hear them. And you're focusing less on the meaning.
Which you've already gotten from the vocabulary section.
Right, you're focusing more on the delivery. The auditory feedback loop is immediate. This is vital because it bypasses that mental processing you need for translation, and it forces the mouth and ear to work together instinctively. It conditions the neural pathways for rapid speech.
And the specific skill targets listed are equally detailed. The learner is instructed to focus specifically on the rhythm and intonation of the English expressions and sentences.
And that is what we refer to as prosody. That emphasis on prosody rhythm, stress, and intonation is absolutely key. And it's often the hardest barrier for second language acquisition.
Why is that? Why is prosody so difficult to acquire?
Because grammar and vocabulary can be learned from a book. But the musicality of a language, the way sentences rise and fall, that has to be trained physically.
So if you can master the prosody of the language,
then your speech achieves greater comprehension, and critically, it sounds far more natural. Because it operates above the individual sound, it's what we call supersegmental.
Can you give an example?
Sure. The difference between how's it going, asked genuinely versus asked sarcastically, that lies entirely in the intonation. If you only practice the grammatical structure, you sound correct but flat.
So by mandating shadowing that's focused on rhythm and intonation, the lesson is directly targeting the most subtle and fluent aspects of English speech.
And the immediate benefit promised is that this exercise will sharpen your pronunciation and overall speaking abilities. It's essentially an exercise in training your vocal apparatus to move automatically, like a musician practicing scales.
Exactly. It ensures that when you finally need to use the phrase run into in real time, you don't have to consciously think about where to place the stress or how the pitch should change.
The muscle memory just takes over.
So phase 2 shifts gears entirely. It moves from that pure mimicry to cognitive retrieval. It's focusing on active listening and rapid recall, and is primarily driven by the Q&A structure.
The instruction here is to listen carefully to the questions I ask. Try to answer them out loud before I reveal the correct answers. And again, the key instruction is out loud.
It has to be spoken.
It has to be. This ensures the practice isn't just some internal contemplation, but an active, real-time speaking rehearsal under pressure.
And the stated benefit of answering out loud ties directly back to those initial goals. This will boost your speaking and listening skills.
They are making you retrieve information, formulate an answer, and articulate it under a timed constraint, which mimics the real-time pressure of an actual conversation.
And this phase crucially includes a direct mandate for repetition. It transforms the exercise from a single test into a high-intensity conditioning drill.
Right. You are told the exercise must be repeated every day until you can say the answers quickly and confidently. Speed and confidence are the stated metrics for success.
But wait a minute, you just said repetition is the key. Doesn't that high mandate for daily repetition risk burnout or, worse, promote brain-dead rote memorization without any genuine contextual understanding? How does the Q&A structure prevent this from becoming a passive, monotonous task?
That's a critical challenge, and it's why the design of the Q&A is so ingenious. This isn't passive repetition, it's active retrieval repetition.
What's the difference?
Rote memorization happens when you simply recite a text. Here, the structure forces you to process an external question, retrieve a specific non-sequenced fact from memory, formulate a full-sentence answer, and then articulate it, all under the clock.
So the very structure of the Q&A ensures that you are actively working your memory and formulation skills, not just reciting a dialogue. Let's dedicate some serious time to the depth of the comprehension check, because this is where the genius of the learning design is really on full display. The Q&A section illustrates the extreme detail required for successful knowledge transfer and how the source manages the complexity of memory.
Absolutely. They aren't just asking basic recall questions. The questions cover the entire narrative flow, starting with the initiation and topic setting. This category tests your understanding of the conversational structure itself.
Right. For instance, testing narrative flow includes questions like, who started the conversation?
Yeah.
And the answer is, Sarah did.
And what did she ask Mark?
She asked him, how's it going? So these aren't about the event, the reunion itself. They're about the social mechanics of turn-taking and opening lines.
Then you have the testing of factual retention. These are the core details of the two narratives, the sticky points that are designed to anchor the vocabulary.
Who did Mark run into? He ran into an old friend named Tom.
And what did Mark and Tom used to do together?
They used to play soccer together back in high school. So the specifics are checked, verifying that you can recall the names and the past relationships with fidelity.
But the truly advanced element for me is the testing of gaps or ambiguity. This is where the source is designed to train a really high-level skill.
Making you distinguish definitively between what is known, what was explicitly mentioned in the transcript, and what is not mentioned.
And this is a crucial skill for advanced communication that really separates fluent speakers from novices. Novices tend to guess or, invent context based on what they expect socially. The advanced learner maintains fidelity to the source information.
So give us some examples of those questions, the ones that test the boundaries of the source material and train this high-level skill.
Okay, look at this precise example.
All right.
Where did Mark meet Tom? The provided answer is not an invented location, like the mall or the park. It's a faithful declaration of ignorance.
Mark didn't mention where he met Tom.
Exactly. Similarly, for future plans, did Mark and Tom plan to meet again? Answer: Mark didn't mention any plans to meet again.
And there was one for Sarah's story, too.
Yes. Did Sarah and her teacher talk for a long time? Answer: Sarah didn't mention how long they talked.
That is phenomenal design. It forces you, the learner, to respect the boundaries of the information provided. You're not just recalling facts, you're recalling the scope of the source material.
It trains you not to invent or assume, which is vital in professional or any kind of detailed communication. It's a fidelity check and a boundary-setting exercise all wrapped into one Q&A session.
Right, and it also includes the confirmation questions, which verify the emotional tone and the enjoyment.
Questions like, did Mark enjoy catching up with Tom? And the answer is yes. He said it was nice catching up.
And did Sarah enjoy meeting her elementary school teacher? Answer: yes, she thought it was a pleasant surprise.
So this ensures that you understood the emotional implication of the language that was used, that nice catching up means enjoyment, not just politeness.
And we return to that hyper-focus on contextual location, which emphasizes redundancy for memorability. They circle back to the grocery store multiple times.
Which is the key anchor point for Sarah's story.
The source asks, where did Sarah meet her elementary school teacher?
She met her at the grocery store.
And then it immediately hits that negative confirmation again. Did Sarah run into her teacher at school?
No, she ran into her at the grocery store. This layered repetition just grills the correct context home, and it makes that specific detail so memorable. The architecture is built on layered, redundant, and active learning.
So to sum up this section, the architecture moves rapidly and deliberately from passive listening to active mimicking, which is the shadowing, then to rapid out-loud retrieval and verification, the Q&A. And this Q&A demands a deep comprehension of both what was stated and strategically what was omitted.
It is a profoundly rigorous pedagogical system, and it's disguised as a fun dialogue about unexpected meetings. So if we look at the concluding statements of the source, everything comes back to one foundational, undeniable learning principle. The source emphasizes this core takeaway right after the Q&A segment.
It says, remember, repetition is the key to success in English.
That's the mandate. It confirms that the utility of everything we've just talked about, the shadowing for prosody, the Q&A for active retrieval, is entirely dependent on your commitment to cycling through them repeatedly.
So the source is a practice tool. It's not a one-time lesson.
Not at all. And what's impressive is that the source material doesn't just mandate repetition abstractly. It's very specific about how to optimize this learning process. It gives you a concrete, measurable plan.
Right. It outlines the specific advice for the repetition cycle.
The mandate is straightforward and comprehensive. Watch this video many times and answer out loud. The continuous vocal articulation is non-negotiable if you want to become fluent.
They demand physical practice, not just cognitive review.
And they provide a specific short-term timeline for tangible results, which is an excellent piece of psychological engineering for setting your expectations and, combating burnout.
The advice states, keep watching this video every day for 1 week and repeat the exercises to see significant improvements in your English skills.
That 1 week timeline is so crucial.
Why do you think that is? I mean, why not just say, repeat until you are fluent?
Because repeat until fluent sounds daunting. It's endless. A 1 week commitment provides a psychological endpoint where you can pause, assess your improvement, and gain the motivation to continue.
It offers immediate feedback on how effective the method is.
It does. It frames the exercise not as a permanent lifestyle change, but as an intensive, actionable sprint toward proficiency in this specific lesson's content.
That addresses my earlier concern about burnout. By providing a structure where success is basically guaranteed after 7 days of focused work, the repetition becomes goal-oriented rather than punitive.
And the promise is of continuous improvement, which reinforces that positive feedback loop. The more you repeat, the faster you improve, you will get better and better. It directly links your effort to measurable progress and positive self-efficacy.
So what this final section tells us, structurally, is that the source material is designed to be a durable piece of content. It's intended to be used daily until you, the learner, achieve automaticity.
The ability to deploy the targeted expressions, the conversational flow, and the prosody without any conscious thought.
The source doesn't just stop there, though. It wraps up with a final recommendation acknowledging the external context of the learning platform or curriculum it's part of.
Yes, it concludes by recommending a subsequent complementary video to further improve your English skills. And it notes, you will love it, I promise.
Which suggests a well-structured curriculum or series where one deep dive leads logically and persuasively to the next.
It ensures you maintain momentum and continuous engagement.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? We have deconstructed this casual dialogue into a highly formal structure. We've identified the 3 crucial idiomatic phrases, run into, I bet, and bump into, and we've dissected the powerful pedagogical framework of active shadowing for pronunciation and rapid, non-ambiguous retrieval for comprehension.
And we've seen that the success of this system relies entirely on your commitment to that repetition cycle, especially focusing on those nuanced details that are verified by the Q&A. The genius lies in training you not just to recall facts, but to understand the scope and the limitations of the source material itself.
And we promised a final provocative thought built strictly on the details we extracted from this specific source material.
So given that the source detailed that Mark and Tom did not make plans to meet again, and that Mark confirmed their chat was only for a bit,
right.
Consider this for a moment. The lasting value and emotional weight of extremely brief, unexpected reunions versus planned, lengthy ones.
That's interesting.
Does the sheer element of surprise and brevity, the fact that Mark and Tom just chatted for a bit, does that actually increase the lasting positive value or the emotional impact of the reunion? Precisely because it was unexpected, unplanned, and fleeting.
That's a deep question that hinges on human memory and scarcity. Does the lack of future plans make the memory of that chance encounter even sweeter? Like it preserves it in amber as a perfect brief moment.
It's something for you to consider as you internalize the structure and the vocabulary of this really excellent deep dive.
Indeed. Understanding the structure of learning is often the fastest path to mastery. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you next time.